I'd like to welcome to our discussion on brokerage services agreements for buyers here in Washington State. I am One Realty's designated broker, Brian Gass. Thanks for joining us. Now, why did we make this video? We believe this is a huge change. And we know that for buyers, it's going to be the hardest adjustment period because sellers have always had a written agreement, but buyers haven't. And these new forms are going to be confusing. You're going to see going forward. The state's minimum elements that need to be included in these forms aren't really the issue. It's that there is no standard form. You'll see going forward, get the protections they're looking for and try and minimize the liabilities. Because don't kid yourself, there is going to be some civil liability if people don't pay attention to these new agreements. Now, on January 1st, some major changes went into effect related to the real estate agency law here in Washington. In fact, it's the biggest change in the law's 26-year history. Now, it's intended to increase transparency and consumer protections, and there's 4 areas of the law that were affected. Now, the creation of the Brokerage Services Agreements for the first time, changes to dual agency, now it's called limited dual agency, duties owed by brokers were expanded, and the Real Estate Brokerage in Washington Pamphlet was updated. Brand new for 24 are the new Brokerage Services Agreements that will be required for anyone working with a real estate brokerage and their agents. Now, the state did set some minimum elements that need to be included in the agreements for them to be legal, and they are a term, the name of the broker who will be representing the principal, the agency entered into, either it's exclusive or non-exclusive. There must be a checkbox where the principal selects the option, consent for limited dual agency for that agent. This is a change for 2024. It used to be called, that must be initialed and acknowledged. There's also acknowledgement for limited dual agency for the supervising brokers in the firm as limited dual agents. You must list the compensation, the amount that the buyer is pay, any third-party compensation that offsets buyer compensation, and then whether the broker agrees to show properties where no compensation is offered at all, whether by the buyer or through a seller compensation offer. All right, here's some items to note. Brokerages can create their own forms. This is what's going to cause the confusion. Even though these elements are going to be included, there's going to be some that people are going to need to pay extra attention for. This form that I'm going to use in this example is going to be just for one firm, our firm, and the discussion is going to really want to highlight the minimum requirements when we're talking. Also, make sure we always read before you sign anything. All right, let's look at the first section. So the first section, most of these are going to be identifying the parties to the agreement. You're going to have the name of the brokerages is going to be the first one because the agreement's with the brokerage. It will list the agent as well who's going to represent you. It will define the area that broker represents you at. So the area is going to be, by default, the state of Washington. It can be a specific address, city, state, county, you name it. It's going to define the term. If nothing's written, it'll be 60 days. It can be any length. It also can be extended with an addendum, which we'll be talking about towards the end. Now, prior to signing any brokerage services agreement or any purchase and sale agreement, you must have been given the Real Estate Brokerage in Washington Pamphlet. Now, we talk about agency. There's 2 types, exclusive and non-exclusive. You will want to check that with a little box on most of these forms. Exclusive means that you're only using this one agent to represent you during the term, and they will be compensated on any property that you close on, no matter who you close on it with. Non-exclusive means they're compensated only if they're listed on the purchase and sale agreement on the property that you close on. Limited dual agency is simply because now they're saying that you can't represent 2 people at once at the same capacity you could as individual people with the conflicts. We actually have a complete video at WashingtonAgencyLaw.com where we talk about limited dual agency and why it's a good idea not to do it. You would want to come out and just decide that with your agent on your own. They would be authorizing the agent to be limited dual agent and then acknowledging the firm's designated or supervising brokers act as limited dual agents when there are multiple brokers who are involved in both sides of deals in any deal that's at the firm. We list our services that goes through exactly what services that might be offered in the agreement. This part's compensation. You're going to list the percentage or dollar amount. Compensation is fully negotiable. There is no standard rate. There is no, this is the way we do it. This is what the buyer is agreeing to pay. It is usually offset by any seller compensation offer in the MLS. Seller compensation. Sellers have historically offered compensation to agents who bring qualified buyers. We don't see a reason for this to change. It's important that we just disclose where compensation comes from. In our agreement, it'll say like, hey, what happens if the seller compensation is equal to or more than the agreement? If it's less than the agreement, what happens if third-party payments or referrals? In our agreement, less than what is agreed upon, then it's our option to waive the difference. Essentially, compensation terms are going to be something where it says, hey, if it's exclusive, then it's anywhere a purchase closes and no matter who it's with. So you got to pay attention to these type of terms. For non-exclusive, it just means whatever the agent or firm who represents the buyer on a purchase and sale agreement. Tail provisions are something that everybody really needs to pay attention to because it's really the time of the agreement that expires. And so it can be complicated if a property closes after a buyer agreement expires, but is active when the buyer was first made aware of the property while it was in an agreement. You could end up with multiple commissions, and that's a problem. There's going to be agreements where there's cancellation without legal cause. You don't want to go in there and be shown a property when you have an exclusive agreement and then go under contract or then try and have your friend write the deal and then not be liable for for the commissions. You really got to pay attention to that. All right, one of the last elements here that was part of the state's requirements, there is no compensation that is offered by the buyer in the agreement and no seller compensation is offered anywhere. Then the broker is not required to show properties or actually let the principal even know that that property exists. On VA transactions, it is against VA regulations to force the buyer to pay compensation, so it has to be seller paid. And then most of these agreements are going to have some section that's going to allow for disputes of these agreements and be able to recover attorney fees. These agreements can be amended. In the term, you can change the agency relationship from non-exclusive to exclusive. You can change the relationship. You can add a co-broker or a co-buyer to these, which is nice. You can also change the dual agency part where I was saying earlier, if you didn't authorize it first and you have a property that you want, you can add it later. You just need to make sure you initial it. Easily done. This makes it very flexible. You can also change the compensation amount as well. Now that's going to do it for me. I just want to make this a very brief discussion. For any questions you might have or for more information on the new brokerage services agreements or anything else related to real estate agency in Washington, go to WashingtonAgencyLaw.com. Until next time, remember there are many asset classes that you can put your money in, but only one of them that you will call home. Reach out to us at One Realty at any one of our phone numbers here or any of our social media. Until next time, remember there are many asset classes that you can put your money in, but only one of them that you will call home.